Hi, this is Kunal, and we're talking about Sharda World School's logo. This is the umbrella organization, and it has sub organizations under it. And we're going to talk about briefly about what makes a logo great, and then loop these insights into what can be done better for our logo and how it can increase perception of value for our brand, which is Sharda World School. Okay. So I'm gonna be like once upon a time here. Okay. So bear with it. And there's gonna be very interesting insights and stories that I'm gonna share with you guys. So before we actually move on to the story part, there is an onboarding protocol, which means KTJ, ZMS, and MZS. What these stand for, I'll be explaining at the end of the call. So yeah, keep up with the call, and don't distract yourself for these 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, KTJ, ZMS, MZS. So we're talking about ingredients that make a mark great. What are these ingredients that, when come together, make a great soup or make a great mark? Right. First is a compelling story. What do I mean by compelling story? See, the logo is like an empty vessel. Okay. If let's take an analogy of a lens. When there's light behind the lens, you see things, right? Without light, you can't see this. Can't see anything. If you don't have a compelling story and you keep changing lenses, it's not gonna make a difference. So story is the light behind it, right? Similarly, to give you an example of probably the oldest logo in history, in Christians believe that the first logo was made by God, and we don't have traces of logos beyond or before that part of the world. So this is considered to be the first logo, and you see, because there is such a compelling story behind the mark, people worship it. People, would wear it. People will probably put it on mountains, like you can see here in an image. So people relate to the mark because of the story behind it, rather than the mark itself, right? Now the mark became so remarkable that just two shapes, it's just two rectangles basically coming together at a particular junction, made it so memorable they did not feel the need to change it for 2500 years, because again, one of the ingredients is a compelling story. The second ingredient is remarkability, right? What does it mean when we say remarkability? The more ingredients we bring together, the more remarkable something becomes, right? Let's say um, we can call anybody. Let's say we'll talk about me. I'm Kunal. I am a professional logo designer. I am also a meditator. I meditate. I play badminton. I've played nationals. So the more ingredients a person brings together into an element, it can be a person, it can be something else, it can be design itself. The more ingredients that come together in one place, something becomes more remarkable. I'll explain how it works in logo design, right? The first, you can see here the SBI logo, right? Now the circle is used very intentionally. The circle is used intentionally because, see, the first source of nourishment and comfort for a baby was a circle. It was the mother's breast, right? Because of our association with circles, because our association of circles is with nurture, care, and comfort, banks and other brands like BMW, Mercedes, they will incorporate circles in their shapes. You can see here SBI is trying to subconsciously signal to us, its target audience, that it's all about nurture, care, and comfort. And then there's a keyhole mark. You can see here in white, there's a keyhole mark, which means we care, nurture. They might not be doing it, right? But this is what the brand is trying to convey, and probably this is what they aspire towards in the next 10, 20 years. And therefore, they've incorporated this design philosophy where a circle meets a keyhole, means we are all about nurture, care, security with a keyhole, which means we are also secure, like a bank should be, right? FedEx. FedEx is a logo. You'll find it very interesting that there's something really interesting going on. What's happening is this is SBI, right? The icon is called a logo mark. This is a logo mark. But when you use letters for a logo, it's called a word mark. Okay, so FEDEX, you'll see that between E and X there is an arrow. You see that? Suddenly you would have gone like, oh, right? It as if a light bulb moment was hit when you saw that because you didn't notice it. This concept in design is called smile in my mind, which means that once you see something, you can't unsee it, right? So E and X, there's an arrow which perfectly represents what FedEx does, moving things from one place to another with precision, right? Nothing, like nothing comes close to explaining this but an arrow, right? So Sony. Now Sony is, you'll see all these designs are actually not talking about the product at all. SBI is a bank, but nowhere in the logo it says it's a bank. FedEx is a shipment company, right? It ships things from one place to another. It's doing it probably with flights, doing corporate, it's doing normal packages as well, right? But nowhere they're talking about the product. Like Sony here, they're not talking about the product, though they make phones, they make probably a zillion things, right? They make cameras for iPhones, but nowhere are they talking about what they do. But what they're talking about is everybody's talking about what they stand for, right? It's a signaling element. Logo is a signaling element. What they stand for. Here, Sony is using remarkability in a very psychological sense, which means when you stretch the font and increase the stroke width, you see here it's a little thick, here it's a little thin. When you increase the stroke length, width, in some areas it comes out as authoritarian, which means that you can probably get a TV for 50,000 rupees of a different brand which does the same thing what a Sony would do. But this Sony, when Sony makes a TV, they will command a price of 1.5 to 2 lakhs, and people will pay for it, and they've earned it with like proving themselves over a period of time that if it's done by Sony, it has to be top notch. So you buy for the brand, right? Just because the brand is built, you're able to charge 4x of what other companies are charging because of the brand identity and how it's being built with associations around its service, right? Today, Sony is actually not making very great phones. It's not making phones at all for that matter. But if they come up with a great product tomorrow, they can leverage the brand and sell a new product. Yes, so Nokia is completely gone. It's not in the market. But tomorrow, if they come up with a great product, they can leverage the Nokia brand and start selling a new product, right? So the life cycle of a brand is much more. It lives. It lives until people who know the brand lives, right? If let's say this generation, after 100 years, this generation goes and Nokia does not come up with anything remarkable, the brand will also die. So the brand is a brand is something that people carry in their guts, right? It's a gut feeling that people have towards a certain brand, and this gut feeling is associated with the logo, right? So this is a fun thing that I ask my clients, since we are recording this and we're not live. I want to actually show you something that's really interesting. See, you will always be mine is written in a certain font here. Then you'll always be mine is second, you can see that. Third, you can see that. The first one looks like it's written by a lover, maybe somebody who's in love with this other person. Second is written by somebody who looks like he or she's a wacko, right? Probably a serial killer, we don't know. Third is written by a friend. Same thing, written in a different manner using a different font completely changes the meaning of what the person is trying to say. So it's not about what you're trying to say, it's all about how you're trying to say it, right? This is the core of what design is. You need to figure out how to say it so it reaches the right target audience in the manner that we want to portray ourselves. So it's all about nuance. So, fun question. Tell me if you have liquid 15 crores, 50 crores, whatever you think you should have in the next 10 years, and you've made that money, uh, which one would you put? Which bank would you trust? Would you trust the left one or the right one? If that's not ringing a bell, I'm gonna put it another way. Do you want people to be creative with your money or be very straight and professional with your money? With your money. The obvious answer is that you would want people to be straight and professional with your money and don't want anybody to be very creative with your money. Now tell me which one looks straight, professional. Obviously, Citibank's looks. And this is subtly signaled in the logo because they're using straight fonts, very straight, professional. They look like they know what they're doing, right? And you want exactly the kind of people to handle your money, that they know what they're doing with your money, right? That's why we put our money in our banks. Wells Fargo Bank, you can see they're trying to be creative. It could go with a calligraphy. This could go with a calligraphy class. It could go with something else, but not with a bank, right? So this subconscious signaling is done through a logo. Simplicity. What I mean by simplicity is that it has to be simple enough that somebody can doodle it. They can, a child, if they see it, they can draw it. It need not be perfect, but they can draw it enough to know, recognize, memorize the shape, right? We have an example here. Apple logo, very simple but super remarkable, right? Because there is a bite. I wish I could show you a live example of how if we make changes to it, it will lose its remarkability and it'll also look like a peach. If this leaf was not at this angle and let's say we keep it straight, you would see it completely imbalances itself. Again, if we remove the bite, it will look like a peach or some other fruit. Because there is a bite and the leaf is at a certain angle, the logo is absolutely balanced. Right? You should see what the first Apple logo looked like, by the way. Super complicated. It could win an art competition. After the call, just Google what an Apple logo looks, first Apple logo. And you'll see images of Newton sitting under a tree, hand sketched. That was the first Apple logo. And quite interestingly, they changed it in 2 years because they understood that you can't put something like that on their on devices or on phones or on the websites. You can't put it anywhere, right? So simplicity, and that's where the designer comes in, where it becomes a tightrope walk that you have to make it remarkable, simple. All of these ingredients have to be put together so it survives the next 50, 100 years. The core belief is that when you make a design, it needs to survive for the next 150 years. Scalability, one of the main points, because technology has evolved from print media where we used to consume media through paper, newspaper, TV. From TV to then we move to smartphones, where you will see if you open your phone, probably 150, 200, 500 apps are competing for your attention, right? And if you don't make it scalable, means you won't be seen. You won't be seen at all. What I mean by that is, we look at an example. Here we have Subway. Okay, this is large international fast food brand. You will see it's a word mark, right? This word mark is very difficult to achieve scalability with. You can achieve scalability with Apple. You see, if I zoom out, you're easily able to see the Apple logo, recognize it very easily. Citibank is also very well recognizable. Wells Fargo is losing its charm, right? It's losing visibility. So, scalability is the ability to see it in large sizes as well as very small sizes. You will see here all these logos are able to achieve scalability. Be it SBI, FedEx, Sony, all the big brands work on scalability. Why I'm actually repeating myself? Because it's super important. Right? You see the word mark, if you can see it in small sizes, and because of the color combination and these arrows here, which is their remarkable, remarkability element, you will see that these are able to easily, very easily, the logo is very easily scaled because of the color combination as well. You can see it in small sizes, big sizes. You can see it in black background. You can see it in white background. That's how the color combination should be. It should work on black, white, etc. They pass the test of time. Now this is a consequence. When you bring these ingredients together, the consequence, the fifth ingredient is by consequence. They pass the test of time. All these logos have not been changed for the last 30, 80, 50, 60 years because they have passed the test of time. How they have passed the test of time? By being simple, remarkable, and scalable, right? Then we have, okay, these are some examples of um how these brands, like especially the first logo, has survived for 2,500 years. Then Coca-Cola is probably 200 years old. Tata is 150 years old. Before independence, they've had the brand was established 150 years ago, before independence. Now, when you have the fifth ingredient plus these other four ingredients, then we have memorability as a consequence. What it means is that a person, once they see it, they can't unsee it. It just stays with them after that. That's the goal. That people remember. They once they see you, they can't unsee you. Right? Now these are the ingredients, right? As I spoke about. Um, we'll now talk about how we can look take these ingredients into consideration and see what we can do for the Sharda World School logo, where we can make it survive. Or what I mean by survive, because the technology will evolve, we'll probably move from smartphones to glasses, and how we can take these ingredients into consideration and see where it needs to be worked on, where it need not be worked on. Right? Both of them are included in this uh, presentation. So these are some of the questions. Before moving on to the questions, we'll actually look at where we are missing out on these ingredients in the mark. Right? First is simplicity. What I mean by simplicity is, you will see all the marks here that we have discussed have uncomplicated color systems. FedEx has two colors, flat. Sony has one color. They do it either black or white. Then SBI has blue, and then they do black and white as well, right? One primary color or two primary colors, and then we have black and white in them, right? Here we have red and blue. Citibank, the navy blue with the red here. It's like basically like an umbrella. They're trying to say that we protect you when it rains, right? So here again, Apple, they do it in very minimal colors. The Why we are not able to see simplicity in this is because we have too many colors. One is, you see the Sharda logo. Here we have gradients. Obviously, if we had two colors, it would be fine, but we have shades and tints, right? We have this color moving into it, then we have multiple shapes inside one shape. Here you see there's a leaf, this is a lotus, so one petal, and then we have another, I just call it shape. Inside the shape there's a shape, and then there's gradient again going. It's basically a gradient inside a gradient, right? Then we have other petals. Here we have gradients inside gradients. What this does is, we lose simplicity in these things, where from a scalable point of view we are then not able to see the logo clearly. It confuses our brains. Here, if for point of comparison, you see I've scaled down the logo a lot. Here you see you're easily able to see it. But can we say the same for Sharda World School? Probably not, right? So simplicity is something that we are missing out on. There's one thing that I really like, is the remarkable part. Here we have a swan in negative space inside the petal logo, right? We have a swan inside like that, but it looks like it's not done intentionally. What I mean by that is, there's too many colors going on, and there's somebody has cut out a swan in the petal. Does not work, right? If we're doing something remarkable, we're trying to bring something to the table, then it has to be clever enough, like the FedEx. Here we have an arrow. Nobody noticed it until somebody told you about it, right? So it's absolutely beautifully done, which means there has to be an element of cleverness when we're trying to achieve something like that, right? And then there is, with moving technology, what will happen is, because too many colors, lack of simplicity, maybe uh, trying to achieve more remarkability. As technology evolves, let's say you come up with an app, you use this as an app icon, you won't be able to compete with other 50, 100 uh, logos. It's just too complicated right now. To future proof it for the next 50, 100 years, we'll have to make it remarkably simple, right? As technology evolves, probably we'll move to smart glasses and we'll start seeing things just with our eyes without having to hold a phone, right? It still has to survive. When we are doing design, we can't rely on the fact that we are seeing it on a phone today, so we can just design it for the phone. No, we have to design in such a way that we don't have to change our face for the next 50, 100 years. A logo is just the face of the brand, right? It's the first impression. That's the first thing that people see. So when this is the first thing that people are seeing, we got to make it in such a way that it's future proof. These logos have not been, they've not been changed for, let's say, this one is especially not changed for 2,500 years. Coca-Cola is not changed for 200 years, right? And they still stayed remarkable because of these ingredients. There's definitely more that goes into it, but it gives you, this presentation is supposed to give you a gist of what goes into a good logo design, which will future proof you for the next 50, 100 years, right? Then we have, uh, yeah, these are the simple questions. Do you want to be perceived like a brand which keeps up with the times? Right now, because you will see the design is going flat, we're using simple colors, simple shapes, but super remarkable, right? You're doing all this to future proof yourself and keep up with the times. All the logos, even Bentley, all the luxury brands have changed logos and they've made it simple, because uh, because as technology evolves, we need to keep up with the times. So do you want to be perceived as a brand which keeps up with the times? This is the question, and these are yes or no questions, right? Do you want to future proof the identity for the next 50 years? What I mean by identity is, identity, logo is an identity, it's an identity element for the brand, right? Do you want to future proof it for the next 50, 100 years? Do you want to make it scalable, remarkable, and future proof? Okay, same question, but repeating itself. Do you want to make it scalable? Is a new question. Scalable means you should be able to see it in small sizes, big sizes, wherever you put it. It should be visible that the mark belongs to Sharda World School, right? Another thing is there are some nuances which I won't pick into detail, and probably we can get on a more detailed call for this because out of scope for this recording. That these should be balanced according to the logo mark. Right now, it's not balanced, right? And since this is the umbrella organization, all the identity that you use for the umbrella organization will then trickle down into your sub organization, which should be the case. Right now, the color system and the logo system are too outdated, and they don't look intentional. To make it intentional and make it professional, we will need to work on some of the elements which will make the mark great. Okay. I spoke about the protocols, and I'm just going to give you a brief about what and how we do things. These are the protocols that we think should be put across when we are doing logos with our clients. So these are the protocols that spoke about. KTJ. See, these things that I have told you about will only work if you understand these things work on KTJ, which means karo to jano. KTJ is karo to jano. Okay? If you do it, you'll know it that it works. I worked with clients where they were charging, let's say, like a wellness brand. They were charging 1 lakh rupees for a complete package of 3 weeks. But then, as we worked on the logo, the perception of value increased, and then we were able to charge much more, and people were not questioning it. Right? You're already charging a premium, but you can charge a higher premium because you've worked on perception of value. Logo is an element which increases perception of value. The difference between why somebody would wear a Balenciaga t-shirt and a plain black t-shirt is just perception of value. Why would somebody pay 50,000 rupees for a t-shirt, same cotton, right? But just with the logo, it increases perception of value, right? Why would somebody drink Fiji water, which is 15,000 rupees for 12 bottles, right? Or more. They would only do this because perception of value is increased. It's just water, it's just quenching thirst, nothing else, right? But perception of value is increased. ZMS. I've given you these questions. If the two questions, if any of the two questions you have a yes to it, yeah, right, then you should do ZMS. Okay, if the answer is yes to any of the two, you should do ZMS. Zyada mat socho. The answer is yes. You should go for it. Okay, I'm just trying to make it simple for you guys. People who have how we do things and what we deliver is MZS. Okay, MZS is mast, zabardast, or shandar. Okay, so these three things, these three protocols, is what I want you to take into consideration when we are working together on this project. And yeah, make sure uh, you can ask me any questions. You can ask Rohit, obviously, right? He's always there. And then I hope to see you guys soon. Speak again. Thank you very much. Take care.